If love prevails in heaven and earth, how can I keep from singing when tyrants tremble as they hear the bells of freedom ringing, when friends rejoice both far and near? How can I keep from singing to prison cell and dungeon vile? Our thoughts to them are winging, when friends by shame are undefiled. How can I keep from singing?
You all have successfully navigated the transition to daylight savings time, which is no small thing. So take one victory already today. And let us gather in this place with people who wish us well, who share our values in this community of love and care and compassion, where we don't always get things right all the time, but we do always try. And when we mess up, we try to make it right and move forward together. So come, let us gather. Come, let us worship together.
This morning's words for welcome come from Maureen Killeran. Welcome, you who come in need of healing, you who are confused or have been betrayed. Welcome with your problems and your pain. Welcome to your joys and your wonderings. Welcome your need to hope, your longing for assurance. Instead of answers, here may you find safety for your questions. Instead of promises, may you find community for your struggles, people with hands and hearts to join you in engaging the challenges and changes of our day. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to People's Church. Whether this is your first time at People's Church or you come every Sunday or anywhere in between, welcome. My name is John McClellan, and I'm part of the Sunday Services Committee. People's Church is a member congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Association and part of a tradition of liberal religion. Here, our mission is to be a beloved community, embracing and serving our diverse world. Welcome, everyone.
And as we begin, a few announcements. Many of you received text messages this week from someone pretending to be me asking for gift cards. I'm really sorry that this happened. Know that I will never ask you for gift cards. That's just not part of how we care for each other here. And if you did buy gift cards and need help making it right, please reach out. We've been through this before. And I know a little bit about how to do that. And know that if you've received these text messages once, you're likely to receive them again. So it's always good to reach out through another communication channel to verify if fake me ever asks you to do something suspicious. On a related note, please do not share our church directory with anyone over email. Please tell them to reach out to Eli in the church office. I and others in the church get scam emails from fake versions of all of you asking for the directory. So we fear that an email like that might have been how our directory was shared. So stay vigilant. I'll never ask you for gift cards. Double check if you're not sure. So I won't ask you for gift cards, but I am asking for your financial commitment to the church. It's pledge season. So we're in the midst of stewardship season. Thanks to all of you who've committed your pledges already. As of Friday, we've received 35 pledges totaling $90,264, which is great. So this is a strong start. And if you're not among those 35 households that have pledged already, we invite you to complete your pledge form this week. You can do that via our online form, in the weekly email, or on the church website. By completing and returning the pledge card you received at church last week or in the mail, or by completing a blank pledge form in the foyer after the service. So please do it. We don't want to have to keep nagging you. We'd love to wrap up early of all of these announcements. And if pledging isn't in the cards for you right now, just let us know. And thank you all for all of the ways that you are generous. Next Saturday afternoon, we are hosting right here in this space a Transgender Day of Visibility event. This is put on by Faith Alliance, the clergy and faith leaders connected to Out Front. And at this gathering, faith leaders will offer words of blessing for trans, non-binary, and gender-expansive folks. This gathering is especially for trans folks, but it's open to everybody. I hope you can attend. So that's next Saturday at 2 with a reception to follow. The reception is being put together by the Congregation of Sisters of St. Joseph. And let me tell you, those Catholic sisters know how to bake. So if you're coming just for the cookies, I would not blame you. 2 weeks from yesterday, we are having an all-church potluck and game night, followed by a sleepover for children and their families. This is here's the QR code. So if you or your children are staying for the sleepover, we need you to register. QR code there. Otherwise, in other church communications, also in the weekly email. So the potluck and game night is for everybody, and then children are invited to sleep over. Kindergartners need one of their grown-ups with them. The other kids, we apparently trust to be in the church without a grown-up, so we'll see how that goes. Next week for our service, we'll be marking the 5-year anniversary of the COVID shutdowns, or when they came to our community. So our service will include poetry, ritual, and remembrance. And if you wish to, you're invited to bring an object that reminds you of that shutdown time in the years that followed. Maybe a mask or a recipe or a piece of art that helped get you through. The items might be damaged in the ritual, so know that. And if you cannot be here in person, feel free to drop them off or just have them with you when you gather with us on Zoom or watch on YouTube. If you're coming in looking for a seat, there are always seats in the front row. Always, always. Just wander forward and you'll find them. And final announcement, people's person Mark Gernsback recently turned 80, and his family are inviting us all to share in cake after the service. If you're here in person, sorry Zoom people, we can't zap cake to you through the internet quite yet. But let us enjoy and celebrate Mark. And now let us sing our opening song.
Yes, I invite you to rise in body or spirit. There's 2 parts to this song. I'm going to give you the first one, and then eventually I'm going to sing the second. You can join me or stay on the first part. That's up to you. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come. And we'll repeat that. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come. Though you've broken your vows 1,000 times, though you've broken your vows 1,000 times, though you've broken your vows 1,000 times,
like to invite Ezra to come up and light our chalice. Prayer for Living in Tension by Joseph M. Cherry. If we have any hope of transforming the world and changing ourselves, we must be bold enough to step into our discomfort, brave enough to be clumsy there, loving enough to forgive ourselves and others. May we as a people of faith be granted the strength to be so bold, so brave, and so loving.
In addition to those of us gathered in this room, we have 26 Zoom connections this morning, and chalices are being kindled right now in the Millwood neighborhood, on Gull Road, in Westwood, Portage, Parkview Hills, Bangkok, Thailand, and in Millwood. What a gift it is to be together in time, even when we're not in the same place. This is a community that supports one another in good times and hard times. One of the ways we do this is we take time when we gather together to lift up the joys, sorrows, and milestones of our lives. If you have something you wish to share with our gathered community, if you're with us on Zoom, I invite you to type it into the chat box. If you're here in person, I invite you to come forward, place a stone in our bowl of water, speak briefly, and share your name. Now I place a few more stones for all of the joys and sorrows, milestones, and birthdays that we're holding quietly in our heart today, those in our wider community and our wider world. Sources of reason and radiance, sources of courage and compassion, keep watch with those who work or watch or weep this day. May the suffering be soothed. May the weary find rest. May the sick be tended. May the dying and those who love them find peace, and may the joyous be shielded. And may all of us know we are wrapped in a love that surrounds us always, a web that connects us to all that exists. And now we will sing our children, our youth, and our teachers off to their classes.
Go forth in peace, in search of wisdom, with love to guide you on your way. And may the joy of life surround you wherever you may go. Go forth in peace, in search of wisdom, with love to guide you on your way. And may the joy of life surround you wherever you may go.
People's people are generous people. And once a month, we have a special offering that is dedicated to doing good and important work beyond our walls. Usually that takes the form of inviting a nonprofit leader to come and tell us about their work, and then we give money to that organization. And this month that's looking a little bit different. So one of the things that I have learned in the last few months is how beholden much of the nonprofit sector is to federal funding, whether that's through direct grants or sub-grants or subcontracts. I was recently in a meeting with nonprofit leaders, and 84% of the organization said that they are dependent on nonprofit or on federal funding for an average of 40% of what they do. And so many of our nonprofit leaders, organizations, partners are really struggling. And they're not sure what they can do and how public they can be with their various commitments to values that we share, values including diversity, equity, and inclusion, but also beyond that. And so one of the things nonprofit leaders have asked us to do, because we are a church, we do not receive federal funding. We are not beholden to any of those restrictions that might come with that dependence, is to gather up money that we can use to mitigate some of the suffering that is likely to come in this moment. Suffering that might happen after a breadwinner is deported, suffering that might happen if someone needs to get out of the country but cannot, suffering that will happen when federal workers are laid off, and on and on. You read the news, you know what these things are. And so in response, your board has created what we're calling the Resistance and Resilience Fund. So this is money. Isn't that good, Brandy? That was a Barb Davis original, wherever she is. I know, that's some poetry right there. That is designed to meet those needs, to be flexible money. So I'm trying not to say too much specific right now because we need it to be flexible because we don't know what's coming. But we'll meet people's needs and mitigate suffering and harm in this moment. So we're working with partners including Michigan Immigrant Rights Center, El Concilio, Out Front, Equality Michigan, to know when to disperse this money. Unfortunately, we don't have enough that we can just put out a public hotline. I wish we did. But we will be meeting needs that would otherwise go unmet. So I invite you to be as generous as you can to this special fund. So this will be held by People's Church, but none of the money will be spent on our internal workings. It's all to leave our walls and support needs of people beyond our church community. So I invite you to be as generous as you can in this time as we care for people in our community in all of this uncertainty. The offering will now be received.
Please join me in giving thanks for all that sustains us. From the countless gifts we each have been given, gifts of life and love and sustenance, we bring these small portions to share in the works of love, which none of us can accomplish alone.
Our words for meditation today come from Undrowned, Black Feminist Lessons from Marine Mammals by Alexis Pauline Gumbs. It is a passage about the sperm whale. What does it take to go deeper? Below the surface of current events and social media reactions? What would allow you to look at what is under your actions and under that and under that? Sperm whales dive a mile deep. Maybe they can give us some advice. And the ocean itself has so many depth lessons. When you think you've reached the bottom, there's something still deeper to go. Take a breath. A guide for diving deeper from Cachalot, aka Phyester macrocephalus, aka the sperm whale who can dive more than a mile deep. 1, breathe. We sperm whales can replace 90% of the air in our lungs with one breath. We can blow our breath 17 feet high. However deep you are breathing, breathe more, exhale longer. Two, take responsibility for your forehead. We sperm whales, for example, have a head full of wax. We can solidify like a weight to go deeper. We can melt it to become lighter than water and float. What is going on in your head? Be intentional with it. 3, hush. We sperm whales stretch out our bodies 60 feet long at the surface and then arch our backs facing down. Our tails come with us, barely creating a ripple. We are saving our energy for depth. This is not the time to splash around. Four, be flexible. Deep in the ocean, there is pressure, a lot of pressure. It will press on your chest and your lungs will collapse. You call it heartbreak. It is how what made you embraces you, reshapes you, welcomes you back. Let it happen. Five, be specific in your actions. When your lungs collapse, you will need the oxygen in your blood. It is deep in your muscles. It was put there by practice. Let your practice facilitate depth. It will be there when you need it. Six, listen. We sperm whales listen underneath our throats, not with our ears. We listen across the planet. We can hear each other click from opposite sides of the globe. Though we may seem alone, we never are. Seven, come back. You will know when it has been enough time in the deep. It can vary, attune to your need, account for your nourishment. Direct your thoughts, melt them down and make them light, and return.
Find a stillness, hold a stillness, let the stillness carry me. Find the silence, hold the silence, let the silence carry me. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit giving power, I will find true harmony. Seek the essence, hold the essence, let the essence carry me. Let me flower, help me flower, watch me flower, carry me. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit giving power, I will find true harmony.
The Sage Must Travel Light, from The Sage's Tao Te Ching by William Martin. Youth can carry a heavy load day after day without noticing the damaging effects, but the sage must lay down the burden. Resentments, regrets, injuries, slights, grudges, and disappointments are much too cumbersome for a person of wisdom and contentment. The sage must travel light. There is a backpack in the mind, which over the years has become filled with rocks and stones. You do not have to carry them anymore. You can empty your pack and carry only compassion from one day to the next. The Hardest Blessing by Jan Richardson. Jesus said to him, "Not 7 times, but I tell you, 77 times. Matthew 18:22. If we cannot lay aside the wound, then let us say it will not always bind us. Let us say the damage will not eternally determine our path. Let us say the line of our life will not always travel along the places we are torn. Let us say that forgiveness can take some practice, can take some patience, can take a long and struggling time. Let us say that to offer the hardest blessing, we will need the deepest grace, that to forgive the sharpest pain, we will need the fiercest love, that to release the ancient ache, we will need new strength for every day. Let us say the wound will not be our final home, that through it runs a road, a way we would not have chosen, but on which we will finally see forgiveness, so long practiced, coming toward us, shining with the joy so well deserved.
Mercy by Dessa. To forgive is to summon your character, red-eyed and sober, and command it to behave against the current of your instinct, to reach up and take down your own flag. To forgive is to break the wishbone of a living bird who consents to the procedure and volunteers to stay awake to stave on anesthesia. It is to make a snow angel in the sawdust beneath the bench where they are shaving down your pride. To arrive at mercy, you pass through a tiny wooden door whose polished knob is the head of a brass pin. You do not enter whole. You undo yourself, pass yourself in pieces to be reassembled on the other side. Your vertebrae go singly, to be rethreaded on the wire of your spine. The larger bones are first reduced by fire. It happens in the early morning hours, often in a sudden, soft collapse. It happens when your lungs are empty and your heart is still between contractions, and you feel a cracking like a breaking paper dam. Some pain, then swift release. And there you'll have it, every grievance unspooling at your feet, shining like cassette tape. I don't know how many have done it and survived. They don't come back to say. But I have seen them through the keyhole, swaying, mute, serene, with folded hands and upturned faces like rag dolls assembled by the blind.
Voice still and small, deep inside all, I hear you call, singing. In storm and rain, sorrow and pain, still will remain, singing. Calming my fears, quenching my tears, through all the years, singing once more. Voice still and small, deep inside all, I hear you call, singing. In storm and rain, sorrow and pain, still will remain, singing. Calming my fears, quenching my tears, through all the singing.
How can someone learn to trust again after experiencing devastating betrayal? When life has been painful, how can a person rebuild the trust to live fully again? How do you set boundaries with someone in your community who actively abuses trust during every encounter? These 3 questions were submitted by People's People during our question service a few months ago. And I knew that they required more than spur-of-the-moment responses, more than 2 or 3 minutes each. So I've been holding them close in my heart ever since, sitting with them, trying to figure out my responses, what I know about betrayal. Navigating betrayal is hard, and how I yearn to be able to stand here and offer 4 easy steps for moving through and moving past and moving on from betrayal. But it's more complicated than that. We know that. People wouldn't have asked the questions if it was easy work. There are so many possible betrayals, from the everyday thoughtless actions to life-shattering violations. And it matters who the person is who violated trust. Responses are different when one is betrayed by an acquaintance, a parent, a spouse, a community, an institution. But betrayal is a deliberately disloyal act, which can take many forms. A friend sharing a secret that you trusted them with is different than a leader violating trust, is different from a broken marriage vow, is different from embezzlement, is different from some stranger sending text messages posing on you as you trying to get people to send them gift card codes. And they are all betrayals, right? So every situation, every relationship is different, and I wish I could offer specific advice on each possible betrayal today, but I cannot. So I'm trying to offer some more general wisdom that you might be able to apply to your betrayals that you face. And if you are working through a specific betrayal right now, know that I'm here for conversation, if that would be helpful. And also today, I want to be clear that I'm focusing on when we are the ones who were betrayed. Of course, we all take our turn as the one who betrays someone. That's kind of how life works, unfortunately, but that's beyond today. So I can't offer you 4 simple steps for navigating betrayal. I first attempted to sketch out like a flow chart, so like an if it's like this, then you do that, and then that I could maybe put up on the screen or stick in your order of service that you could take with you, and it was just this tangly mess that was not helpful at all. So rather than 4 easy steps, I offer you 4 complicated wisdoms for navigating betrayal today. Complicated wisdom number 1. Love yourself gently through betrayal. Betrayals are a deliberate disloyalty, which means we expected one thing to happen and then something worse happened. We expected some sort of loyalty and there was some sort of betrayal. And that gap between expectations and reality is painful in itself, in addition to whatever pain is connected to the act of betrayal. It hurts when someone proves themselves unworthy of our trust. It leads us to question our own sense of assumptions or our own judgment. But as the poet Jan Richardson reminds us, the wound will not be our final home. After betrayal and the immediate aftermath, it can be hard to know this, to know that the new reality is not the permanent reality. So at first, be exquisitely gentle with yourself. It's easy to start down the path of beating ourselves up for misplaced trust. If only I had seen the warning signs. If only I had listened when my friend offered advice. If only I had made a different choice at this point or at this point. If only I had known then what I know now. If only, if only, if only. When the if onlys get very strong, I encourage you to gently let those thoughts go and find something else to focus on. I know that is so much easier said than done. But there is rarely anything fruitful down the path of if only. So be gentle with yourself. Remember, you are doing your best. It's not your fault that someone betrayed you. That is not how this works. In the immediate aftermath of betrayal, give yourself love to replace some of the love that was wounded. Your stores of love and trust have been depleted by a betrayal. It is time to fill them back up. So that's a moment to turn to your self-care strategies, your relationships of uncomplicated support, the books and music and art and other things that give you joy. It's a time to go to Lake Michigan. Joy is always necessary, but it's especially necessary when putting yourself back together after betrayal. So that's complicated wisdom number 1. Love yourself gently through betrayal. Next, boundaries. In the aftermath of betrayal, boundaries are almost always necessary. Some sort of distance, physical or emotional or both, between the people involved, the institutions involved, whatever the situation is. Boundaries allow us to regroup, to care for ourselves, to figure out what's next. Prentice Hemphill, a Black non-binary therapist, activist, and writer, writes that boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously. That's good, right? So we're going to hear it again. Boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously. And that distance, at least for a time, might have to be pretty big. To live a life with love at its center, as we aspire to do here at People's Church, that sometimes requires distance and boundaries, loving ourselves alongside others. Love is not repeatedly offering ourselves up for abuse or violation by those who have proven themselves untrustworthy. Setting a boundary can be an act of love for both oneself and the other person, keeping yourself safe and also teaching that other person that what they are doing is not okay. So at least for a time, we cannot be in relationship. There are some people we can only love from a distance. I know my mental list is populating right now. Maybe yours is too. We have those people with little or no contact, that sometimes what is required if we are going to love ourselves, and that is not wrong. Those others that we cannot be close to, for whatever reason, can receive love and care and do their healing with people who are not us. When we set and hold boundaries, we are honest about our limits and abilities and create the space necessary for healing for ourselves and perhaps for the other involved. There's a strain of pop theology that is strong in our culture that prioritizes forgiveness and reconciliation over almost everything else, including safety, including well-being, including truth-telling. There's this idea that you've probably received one way or another that an apology, even a bad one, should somehow immediately return things to how they were before, as if it erases an action. And that is not the theology of this place, of People's Church. We know that some betrayals cannot be mended with a quick apology, no matter how heartfelt. Some acts of disloyalty, some breaches of trust cannot be forgiven right away, perhaps not ever, or at least until there are true amends and changed behavior. Reconciliation might not ever happen, and that is not wrong. It might be necessary. The people in the middle of the situation know what is necessary. They know the truth in ways beyond any generalities I could speak today. And here at People's Church, we trust people to be the experts of their own experience. So that's complicated wisdom number 2. Boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously. Complicated wisdom number 3. Sometimes, eventually, being betrayed leads to growth. We can find meaning in the mess. Pema Chodron, I practiced it, is an American Buddhist nun and teacher in a Tibetan Buddhist lineage. I imagine many people's people are familiar with her teachings. And in her book, When Things Fall Apart, Hard Advice for Difficult Times, she tells a story about how betrayal changed the trajectory of her life. She writes, I remember so vividly a day in early spring when my whole reality gave out on me. Although it was before I had heard any Buddhist teachings, it was what some would call a genuine spiritual experience. It happened when my husband told me he was having an affair. We lived in northern New Mexico. I was standing in front of our adobe house drinking a cup of tea. I heard the car drive up and the door bang shut. Then he walked around the corner, and without warning, he told me he was having an affair and wanted a divorce. I remember the sky and how huge it was. I remember the sound of the river and the steam rising up from my tea. There was no time, no thought, there was nothing. Just the light and a profound, limitless stillness. Then I regrouped and picked up a stone and threw it at him. She continues, when anyone asks me how I got involved in Buddhism, I always say it was because I was so angry with my husband. The truth is that he saved my life. When that marriage fell apart, I tried hard, very, very hard, to get back to some kind of comfort, some kind of security, some kind of familiar resting place. Fortunately for me, I could never pull it off. Instinctively, I knew that annihilation of my old, dependent, clinging self was the only way to go. So, when that Buddhist nun's former husband betrayed her and his marriage vows, he set her life on a new path, a trajectory that led her to a new religious path and religious leadership, teaching others through her retreats and her recordings and her writings about how to better live with the uncertainties of life. She now can even look back with gratitude, saying that her husband saved her life. So I want to be really clear that I don't think that the ex-husband's betrayal was somehow worth it because it set her on a path of meaning. It was a betrayal, and it cannot be justified looking back after the fact. I don't believe that there is some cosmic scriptwriter who somehow forced the ex-husband into the affair to set Chodron up for a redemptive storyline. Everything does not happen for a reason. That's another bit of pop theology that I reject. And Chodron found meaning in her mess. This is something humans do. It is remarkable, really, that we are capable of this. So many leaders and teachers and change makers and exemplars and heroes of all sorts have turned betrayal and violation into motivation and meaning. Again, none of this pain is worth it, or justified, or good in the long run, or anything like that. And after betrayal, people tend to find meaning and purpose as they heal. And that often becomes energy to protect others, to reform institutions, to build a world with less suffering. It is a remaking of oneself and the world that can happen after betrayal. The writer, singer, and rapper Dessa described it vividly in the poem I read earlier. To arrive at mercy, you pass through a tiny wooden door whose polished knob is the head of a brass pin. You do not enter whole. You undo yourself, pass yourself in pieces to be reassembled on the other side. Betrayal takes us apart, and we can put ourselves back together in new ways. This work of reassembly after great pain can make us new, help us find meaning and purpose. Not that it's worth it, right? If you don't hear anything else today, hear it's not worth it. It doesn't happen for a reason, all of that. And sometimes betrayal is just betrayal, and there isn't meaning to be found there. And that doesn't mean you're doing it wrong or anything like that. And betrayal sets us on a new path. And there's meaning to be found there on the journey toward healing we never wanted to be on in the first place. So, complicated wisdom number 3. Sometimes, eventually, betrayal leads to growth. We can find meaning in the mess. And complicated wisdom number 4, in time, let go. In the passage John read earlier, which is part of a free verse interpretation of ancient Taoist wisdom, we heard, youth can carry a heavy load day after day without noticing the damaging effects. But the sage must lay down the burden. Resentments, regrets, injuries, slights, grudges, and disappointments are much too cumbersome for a person of wisdom and contentment. I feel that. I don't know about you, but I have a collection of resentments, regrets, injuries, slights, grudges, and disappointments that I do carry with me. It's not the best version of who I am, but I could tell you very little about my 8th grade year, but I could give the first and last name and a physical description of the girl who had been my friend but then was mean to me that year. I carry that. Or I could tell you the stories of how I was done wrong by a wide collection of coworkers, roommates, friends, romantic partners. And maybe you have those similar stories too, similar burdens. I think it's human nature to carry those with us. But we don't have to carry them, at least forever. We can let it go. This could mean forgiveness, but it doesn't have to. Psychologist Martha Crawford writes, there are many ways to come to terms with harms and violations perpetrated by others. Forgiveness is only one of them. Holding people accountable is another. Channeling one's energy into rebuilding oneself and supporting others is one more alternative. How people heal from abusive or aggressive actions isn't necessarily dependent on what they think about their perpetrator, but how they come to think about themselves in the aftermath. The idea that the only way one can come to terms with violating or traumatic harm inflicted by another is dependent on how the victim thinks of the perpetrator is a strangely perpetrator-centric idea. There's more than one way to survive, even possibly sublimate injury and potentially transform that into wisdom or growth, with or without forgiveness. With time, with healing, with our own inner work, we can let go of the burdens of betrayal, with or without forgiveness. We can clutch fewer of those resentments, regrets, injuries, slights, grudges, and disappointments tightly to our chest. We can hold them loosely enough that they might just tumble away from us. So now, when I think of my 8th grade Meanie, I can think of how she was also just a kid, navigating a challenging time. To be clear, I have no desire to reconnect with her. But I can genuinely wish her well from a distance, hope things are unfolding nicely in her life, wherever she is. And that isn't forgiveness, really, but it's compassion. It's a releasing, a letting go, a choosing to no longer carry that anger and woundedness. And it's only taken me decades. None of this work is easy. But it is so good for us to be able to do this work of mercy, have a little lighter backpack of grudges to carry with us. It releases us from the heavy loads we carry. So that's complicated wisdom number 4. In time, let go. So these are not 4 simple steps. They are anything but simple, unfortunately. But I believe they can help us navigate betrayal with care and integrity. Care for ourselves, care for others, care for the world. So the questions came. How can someone learn to trust again after experiencing devastating betrayal? When life has been painful, how can a person rebuild the trust to live fully again? How do you set boundaries with someone in your community who actively abuses trust during every encounter? While I hope it is a long time before you next need to navigate betrayal, but it does come for us all in time. And when betrayal does come, let us remember these 4 complicated wisdoms. Number 1, love yourself gently through betrayal. Number 2, boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously. Number 3, sometimes, eventually, betrayal leads to growth. We can find meaning in the mess. And number 4, in time, let go. May it be so. May we make it so. And amen.
All right, I invite you one last time to rise and body your spirit to sing together. There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more hope somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more peace somewhere and joy. There is more joy somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more joy somewhere.
So our service is ending a little bit early. So if you have children, you get to enjoy 5 or 10 minutes of not them before you go get them from RE. So be sure to enjoy that. And so much gratitude to Mark Gernsback and his family for the cake, because now I can use my favorite ever benediction. Go at peace, be at peace. If there's cake, have a piece. Let's go.